Thanks a lot for staying with us. France has been rocked by angry protests across the country against Macron government over the past several days, with tens and thousands of people hitting the streets against the pension reforms. Trains and Paris metro services have been disrupted after rail workers also joined the planned protests. Violent clashes are taking place across the country, with demonstrators blocking airports and railway stations, even setting fire to Bordeaux's City Hall. Molotov cocktails and tear gas have been used by cops to disperse crowds. Essential services have been disrupted, oil and gas deliveries stalled, tourist attractions like the Eiffel Tower closed to shield them from vandalism. But why is France on the edge? Why are the protests taking place in the country in the first place? So recently, Macron government passed a controversial pension reform in parliament using special constitutional powers without even giving French lawmakers a chance to vote. Under this reform, retirement age has been increased from 62 to 64. From this September, age will increase by 3 months each until 2030. Physically and mentally arduous workers may retire earlier. From 2027, Social Security contributions of 43 years will be required, 1 year more than the current. All French workers will get a state pension. The public, though, has been resisting these changes.
I'm against this reform simply because I have two parents who are killing themselves at work and damaging their health, and I don't want to see them die at work. My father, he works every day. He gets up to get on the tarmac at Roissy at 5 a.m. to load the planes. I find it difficult to imagine myself at 64 getting up at 3 a.m.
I think that when you have institutions that don't really listen when we hold demonstrations that are more peaceful and that are declared, you have to find other ways to act and be seen. We're not heard when we protest peacefully. When the unions try to meet the president, we don't really have the means to put pressure on the government.
So why has there been this opposition to the new pension reforms that the entire country is rocked by such violent protests? The current pension system is seen as a cornerstone of France's very cherished model of social protection, which the public is not willing to give up. Pensions Advisory Council's independent analysis says that they don't support the claim that pension spending is out of control in France. Macron's plan is also riddled with concessions and exemptions. And most importantly, using Article 49.3, Macron overrode Parliament to pass retirement age bill. Why the opposition current system is also seen as some sort of a cherished model, it was this act that also made it clear to them that the government is not listening to them. More than 1 million people have demonstrated across France against this unpopular reform. In Paris, street battles between police and black-clad masked groups took place. Protesters attacked at least 2 fast food restaurants, a supermarket, a bank, in a bid to intensify the violence and draw attention away from the thousands of peaceful marchers. With unprecedented protests, Paris is on the edge. About 30% of flights at Paris Orly Airport were cancelled. Transportation workers blocked tracks at Paris Gare de Lyon station as a part of mass strikes. Footage shows union members marching on tracks, lighting flares and carrying large flags and banners. Amidst mass protests and demonstrations, King Charles III and Queen Consort Camilla's first visit to France as British monarch has been cancelled. Buckingham Palace described the change in plans as a postponement.
I think you see the situation related to the protests because of the pension reform in France. From the moment when, last night, the Trade Unions Alliance announced a new day of mobilization on Tuesday and that the King's visit was scheduled from Monday to Wednesday. I think that we would not be serious and lack a certain common sense to propose to His Majesty the King and Queen Consort to come on a state visit in the middle of the demonstration.
France faces twin issues, which is why they're pushing these reforms. An aging population, so less working population, and a larger than others pension bill. So the pension bill in France is nearly 14% of the GDP. This is more than most developed countries. French men retire 2 years earlier than EU average, French women a year earlier. Ratio of workers to retirees expected to dip from 2.1 in 2000 to 1.2 by 2070. French also need to boost the employment rates amongst the 60 to 64-year-olds. France's rate is only 33% compared to 61%, for example, in Germany and 69% in Sweden. France also has the lowest qualifying age for a state pension amongst major economies, especially in Europe. According to government, the gross savings out of these reforms will be up to 17.7 billion euros a year by 2030. France is not